That's right, Tom. Gladys Berejiklian has once again lashed out at other state leaders for their stance on borders and essentially ignoring national hotspot advice. There are currently no declared hotspots in Greater Sydney, but all residents are banned from travelling into Queensland, and anyone who's travelled to 10 local government areas in Sydney's southwest cannot visit Victoria, leaving thousands of families stranded. Now, the Premier is calling on both state leaders to make decisions based on the science.
The national health experts, of which all the state medical officers are part of, there is no place in Australia that's deemed a hotspot. So if there's no place in Australia that's deemed a hotspot, why do we even have these border closures or border restrictions? And why should residents of the Tweed, for example, have to get a permit just to travel a few kilometres over the border? It doesn't make sense to me. Is the current risk worthy of having border closures? No. I just don't understand it when people make decisions to designate something a hotspot or a red zone when the Commonwealth health experts deem no part of Australia to be a hotspot.
You'll always find some differences. These are the decisions we've made, and I think that Victorians would take a pretty dim view if I were to, for the sake of national consistency, because that's, frankly, that's not as important as following public health advice. If for the sake of national consistency I said, no, Brett Sutton, I'm not going to follow your advice, I don't think that'd be the right way to go.
Two different views from Gladys Berejiklian and Daniel Andrews there, but I asked Sydney-siders what they think.
Well, it's a free country, and the situation is not that bad at the moment.
For everyone, it's a different situation, but, everyone's trying to do the best they can. Nobody's been through a pandemic before.
I'm in the situation where, yep, I absolutely agree that each state has its own right to make its own decisions.
New South Wales recorded no new cases of community transmission today. 2 cases were detected in hotel quarantine, but testing rates remain low. Just over 10,500 people came forward for testing yesterday. That is slightly higher than the day before, but authorities say that this number needs to double so they can get a clear picture of how the virus is presenting in the state. Now, New South Wales, a crisis cabinet meeting will be held tomorrow, and they will discuss or review restrictions that are in place across the Greater Sydney. On the agenda is mask wearing, the number of people that can attend weddings, and also the number of people that can visit a household. But of course, this all depends on the number of people coming forward to get tested.
Premier, are you leaning towards any restriction relief in terms of household visits and masks when a crisis cabinet meets?
Look, we've said that we're definitely in the space of wanting to ease those restrictions that are in place currently, but it depends on the rate of testing and the number of cases. You look at both those things, and often if you have one and not the other, well, that's a good thing. But in New South Wales, we've had a few days of no cases, but unfortunately the testing rates are still too low for the liking of the health experts, and they want to see that rate go further up.
Tom, hopefully some restrictions will be eased in the next week or so, but the message there from authorities, if anyone is displaying any symptoms, come forward and get tested.